The land was dry, vast, and aching for rain. It was the kind of land where a man could ride for days and not see another soul, where the sky seemed to stretch forever and the sun baked every inch of the cracked earth beneath it. West of Buckhorn Ridge, nestled in a dusty pocket of Montana, stood a modest ranch, the kind built by calloused hands in long years. Its name was Double Oak, and the man who kept it alive was named Eli Cartwright. Tall, lean, and quiet, Eli had inherited the ranch from his father and spent most of his life mending fences, tending cattle, and listening to the wind speak in ways only old souls could understand. He was a man of few words, but full of quiet honor, the type the land respected. Asterisk, it was late summer when it happened. Eli was out riding the south fence line, checking for breaks, when his mare, Dusty, started acting uneasy. Her ears twitched. Nostrils flared. Something was wrong. Eli dismounted and moved slowly toward the sound of trickling water at the base of a dry creek bed. That stream rarely flowed this time of year, but recent storms had left just enough for the earth to weep. As he approached, he saw it movement in the brush. Not an animal. Human. Asterisk, a young native man lay there, slumped against a rock, his sides soaked in blood, breathing shallow and fast. His face was streaked with dust, and a deep gash on his thigh looked freshly torn, maybe from a bullet or a trap. Eli didn't ask questions. He didn't think. He simply knelt beside the man and uncorked the canteen from his saddlebag. Healed it to the stranger's lips. The wounded man drank with trembling hands, eyes barely able to meet Eli's. No words passed between them, just the silent understanding of need and the decency of answering it. Asterisk, Eli cleaned the wound as best he could with what little he had, whiskey, rags, steady hands. The young man winced, but didn't cry out. Eli wrapped the leg tight, then built a small fire and stayed beside him until night fell, sharing the little jerky he carried and keeping the coyotes at bay. At dawn, the man was too weak to move. Eli loaded him carefully onto Dusty and led the mare the 5 miles back to Double Oak. Asterisk, back at the ranch, Eli laid the man in the old bunkhouse. It hadn't seen guests in years, but it had a clean cot and shade. For 3 days, Eli fed him broth, changed his dressings, and watched over him. He didn't pry, didn't ask who shot him, why he was alone, or where he was from. Simply cared for him as any decent man would for another human in need. On the 4th day, the stranger finally spoke. Asterisk, my name's Toka. His voice was low, dry as the desert wind. You could have left me. Asterisk, Eli shrugged. Could have, didn't. Asterisk, a weak smile crept across Toka's face. I owe you, rancher. Asterisk, you. Don't owe me a damn thing, Eli said. Drink your water. Asterisk, Toka nodded, grateful but still wary. House. His eyes were sharp, the kind that had seen too much too young. Over the next few days, strength returned to his body. He helped Eli chop firewood, clean the barn, even fixed a broken hinge on the chicken coop. He was quiet, skilled, and polite. Not once did he speak of where he came from, nor did Eli ask. Asterisk, but something stirred beyond the quiet of their days. Eli could feel it in the wind, the way birds flew strangely, the way the coyotes howled too early. On the 7th day, as the sun began to dip behind the hills, Toka stood at the edge of the pasture, staring into the horizon. He turned to Eli, eyes somber. They'll come, he said. Who? Eli asked. Asterisk, my people. Asterisk, you run from? Them. Asterisk, Toka shook his head. I was hunting when I crossed the wrong side of a miner's fence. He thought I was stealing. Shot first. I made it out. My tribe. ... They'll be looking for me. Asterisk, Eli didn't respond. He simply nodded and tossed another log on the fire. Asterisk, that night was restless. Eli sat on the porch, rifle across his lap, eyes watching the shadows. Dusty neighed nervously. In the still of night, Toka walked out and stood beside him. Asterisk, I should. Leave, he said. Don't want to bring trouble. Asterisk. Eli looked at him. You're healing. You leave now. You die out there. Besides, I can handle trouble. But nothing could have prepared Eli for what came the next morning. The sun had barely crested the hills when the ground began to tremble. Not an earthquake. Hoofbeats. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Eli walked out into the open, his rifle slung but not raised. The sound grew louder, thunderous, and soon they came riders appearing over the ridge. One after another, dressed in feathers, beads, and leather, carrying spears, bows, and painted shields. Warriors, an entire tribe on horseback. They descended. Like a wave, encircling the ranch in silence. No war cry, no shouts, just power and presence. Eli stood his ground, calm, steady. Toka stepped forward, limping slightly. Raising his hand, an older man, rode out from the crowd, his face stern and carved with wisdom. The chief, dismounted slowly, walked to Toka and gripped his arm with pride. Then he turned to Eli. This man, the chief said in deep, deliberate English, gave my son water when he was dying. He shared his fire. He did not ask who he was. That is rare. Eli nodded once. He needed help. That's all I saw. The chief studied him a moment. Longer, then raised his hand. From behind the riders, a woman stepped forward with a bundle of pelts. Another offered a carved totem. Others brought fresh game deer, rabbits, even baskets of herbs. These are gifts, the chief said. For your kindness, for your honor. Eli looked around, overwhelmed. He hadn't asked for anything. He didn't need payment. But what he saw in their faces wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper. Respect. Recognition. Toka walked up beside him. You didn't just help me, Eli. You helped all of us. My people remember those who show heart. As the sun climbed higher, the tribe settled briefly, sharing food, stories, and song. Children ran through the corral. Elders rested in the shade of Eli's porch. And for the first time in many, many years, the Double Oak Ranch felt alive. Just with cattle and chores, but with soul. When they left at dusk, they left slowly, respectfully. The chief bowed his head once before turning his horse to the west. Toka lingered, looking at Eli. I'll come back, he said. Eli just nodded. The doors open. As the dust settled and the last rider vanished over the ridge. Eli sat once more on his porch, the rifle beside him, heart full in a way he hadn't felt in decades. He'd only given water. But in the desert, sometimes water is everything. And friends. If this story moved you even a little, if it brought images to your mind and fire to your heart, then I invite you to join this journey. There are more tales waiting, more truths. In the dust and silence of the West, so hit that subscribe button and become a part of our campfire. The next chapter is just beyond the horizon. A week had passed since the riders disappeared over the ridge, leaving Eli Cartwright standing alone in the settling dust, a quiet man in a quiet land forever changed by what had unfolded. The ranch felt different, now haunted, not by fear, but by memory. Every creak of the bunkhouse door, every hoofbeat in the distance, reminded him of Toka and the tribe's arrival. He'd gone from being just a rancher with weathered boots and a tired soul to something else, something honored, something watched. Eli tried to return to the rhythm of ranch life, feeding the horses, checking the fence lines, fixing the old windmill that hadn't turned since last spring. But a restlessness had settled deep within him. He felt it most at night, sitting on the porch, staring at the horizon, wondering if they would ever return or if the silence was the only answer he'd get. Didn't know why it mattered so much. Maybe it was because for the first time in years he hadn't felt alone. On the 8th day. As the sun cracked the dawn open with streaks of gold, a lone rider approached from the west. It was Toka. He rode slowly, not as a wounded man now, but as a son returning home with purpose. In his posture and pride in his eyes, Eli stood from the porch, his coffee cooling in hand. You're early, Eli said, a smile playing under his beard. I told you I'd come back, Toka replied, dismounting with ease. And I didn't come alone. Behind him from the tree line came more riders, half a dozen at first, then more. Not a war party this time, but a delegation. Warriors, yes, but also women, children, and elders. Some rode horses, others walked. This time, they didn't come with weapons or caution, they came with purpose. Eli's brow furrowed. What's going on? Toka looked around the ranch. We've been watching. The land here, it's changing. The mines in the east, the railway pushing in, they're moving closer to our hunting grounds. My father, the chief, he believes something must be done. We want to build something together. A place where our people can pass through, trade, rest. A shared place, not stolen, not taken by force, given by a friend. Eli leaned against the post, processing. You're talking about my land? Toka nodded. Not all of it, just a stretch near the south pasture, by the creek. We'll help you work it, grow it, protect it. It'll be ours, and yours. Together. It wasn't an easy ask. This land had been in Eli's family for generations. His father bled for it. Grandfather buried on it, but Eli was no fool. He knew the world was changing faster than any fence could hold it back. He also knew that in all the years he'd worked this land, no one had ever offered to share the burden. Till now. He looked toward the south pasture, then back at Toka. You bring the people, I'll bring the lumber. That single nod between them was worth 100 signed papers. The next few days were unlike anything Buckhorn Ridge had ever seen.
Teepees
And lean-tos rose beside hay sheds. Elders sat in rocking chairs that hadn't moved in decades. Young braves helped fix the windmill. Eli showed the children how to saddle a horse. They taught him how to fish with bone hooks and willow branches. Stories were exchanged, not with suspicion, but laughter. And then came the news. Word spread that a group of railroad men were headed west, surveyors, backed by hired guns and profit-hungry bankers. They had eyes on the ridge, and their maps marked Double Oak and the tribal lands like checkboxes waiting to be claimed. Toka came to Eli one evening, sky burning orange. They'll come through here. You know that. I know, Eli replied, and I know they won't ask. Toka looked him in the eye. What will you do? Eli stood slowly, setting down his coffee. We'll be ready, The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. The tribes dug trenches, reinforced fences, and created lookout posts among the bluffs. Eli brought out old rifles, cleaned and oiled them. Word spread among neighboring ranchers. Some scoffed. Some warned him not to get involved, but a few came with hammers and grain. On the 4th day. The riders came, not tribal, not friendly. 10 men on horseback, clean clothes, shiny boots, and eyes full of entitlement. Their leader, a short man with a long mustache, rode straight up to the porch and tipped his hat like he owned the air. Morning, he said. Name's Harlan. We're with Midland and Western. We're surveying for the new rail route. Seems this stretch belongs to us now. Eli leaned forward in his chair, chewing a blade of grass. Funny, don't recall selling. Harlan laughed, not kindly. It's not about memory, friend. It's about progress. Behind him, 2 men were already hammering stakes into the ground. Another pulled out a map, pointing and drawing lines as if the land were his. Toka stepped forward then, flanked by 3 warriors. They didn't speak, didn't need to. Their presence said enough. Harlan looked around, noticed the growing crowd behind the barn, the flicker of firelight from the teepees, the glint of steel on spears. What the hell is this? He muttered. This, Eli said. Standing slowly isn't just my land anymore. It belongs to more than you'll ever understand. So I'd suggest you turn those horses around and find another route. Harlan's eyes narrowed. You threatening? Me, rancher? Eli stepped off the porch, boots hitting the dirt. No, I'm promising you. For a moment, no one moved. The air was thick enough to slice. Then one of Harlan's men reached for his revolver. The sound of bowstrings being drawn echoed instantly. Over a dozen arrows aimed without a word. Harlan saw it, Felt had understood. Asterisk, he raised his hand. Easy, boys. We'll go. Asterisk. And they did. Not with fear, but with the grim understanding that the West wasn't as empty as they thought. The men they'd tried to erase had allies now quiet. Hard men like Eli Cartwright, who didn't need war paint to stand their ground. Asterisk that night. The fire burned brighter than ever. Songs rose into the night sky, old languages mixing with new laughter. Children danced. Elders smoked in peace. Eli sat beside Toka, both men tired but content. You didn't have to stand with us, Toka said. Eli looked at the fire. You stood with me first. Asterisk, the moon rose over Double Oak. No longer just a ranch, but a sanctuary, a place where the line between settler and native blurred. Where honor grew like wheat and loyalty flowed like water. Asterisk, and as the wind whispered through the canyons, carrying the story of a rancher who gave water to a wounded native, and a tribe who returned not with vengeance, but with unity. One truth echoed louder than the rest. Sometimes, the smallest kindness becomes the spark that changes everything. Asterisk, and if this tale stirred your soul, reminded you that the West holds more than dust and guns, if it made you feel something real, then ride with us again. Hit that subscribe button, because more stories are waiting. Tales of grit, of honor, of blood and dust and brotherhood. This is just the beginning, Asterisk.